flow of lessons. So there's a three-parter. We're doing the leadership lessons, also like the language support, and then we actually just started this really new aspect of pen pals. And so Kiara is going to tell you about how the pen pals thing is working out.
In our last meeting, we started writing our letters to our pen pals in Russia. I think it's really exciting to write to them because from the picture you can see that in some ways we're similar. We're both students that go to school, and in some ways we are different. Like, for all you know, they could be learning more than us or less, but I think it's exciting because we're going to be learning new things about them and they can be learning new things about us.
We're going to bring those letters to you so you can see them later.
And here's another group of students that we're starting with pen pals, and that is the students that are in Egypt. So new opportunities for our kids.
Good evening, Board President, Board members, and Dr. Lewis. My name is Eddie and I teach third grade at Creighton. I'm also the Junior Ambassador Liaison there. We have been currently recruiting junior ambassadors in 7th and 8th grade, specifically 8th graders to travel to DC. When the current slide was, when the current slide was produced, there was 15 students. We have currently 17 now.
Excuse me. Do you have a limit or a goal or a limit?
I don't think we have a set limit.
So last year, I think we had like 28 students going. So we'll continue the recruiting process, and the organization that we work with will accommodate.
And it's just 8th graders, right?
Yes, this is just 8th grade.
My name's Hannah Weissong, and I teach middle school science at William T. Mackin. I was lucky enough to go to Washington, D.C. last year with our 8th graders. There were 28, almost 30 students we took. It's an incredible experience to be able to teach and learn in real life, in real time. There was a student who tried to take a full bottle of aloe water through airport security. And I said, look, you're either going to have to throw it away or you're going to have to chug it right now. And so the experience of travel, things that you haven't experienced before, you are learning minute to minute. You are seeing things in real life, not only how to travel, but seeing the history, seeing where our government takes place, those museums, those memorials, monuments, meeting our congressman was an incredible experience. When he started speaking Spanish, our students started applauding. So that was a really great moment for our students. One of our students who went is with me. This is Jessica Velasquez. She was an 8th grader last year, and she is currently in 9th grade at North High School. So I've asked her to share some of her thoughts on the trip.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I participated in the Washington, D.C. trip last year. Personally, I think it was a really nice experience to get to visit all these memorials, museums, and like even cemeteries. We learned about like our important people in our history. My favorite part was probably the Holocaust Museum, especially because we had a Holocaust survivor that shared his story with us, and I think that was a really nice experience.
Was the survivor there, or are you talking about in the school district?
No, he was there at the Holocaust Museum.
Oh, okay.
He spent a long time with the kids, I would say 30 minutes. He was at a table, and the kids just all stood by him, and he had them right here. And that opportunity was incredible for the kids. Okay, great.
So we're also going to talk to you about our Germany planned trip we're going to be taking during spring break. So currently we have 32 8th graders going, very excited 8th graders, and we'll have 5 teachers coming as well, myself, and then the other teachers aren't here, but Mr. Hammerquist, who's gone a number of times as well. And so we wanted you to know, because we know you put such great effort in getting this trip available this year, we wanted you to hear from Kira about why she wanted to go and what her feelings about it.
I applied for this Germany trip because I've traveled to many places and Germany would be another place to add to the list. Germany is very different than just going to California, so I would feel like I'm more experienced about our world. It's a whole different culture and a whole different language, so now I know 3 languages. So it's really exciting to go somewhere new because you don't know what's going to happen.
So thank you very much.
So a new piece that we've been talking about this year, as we know, is Dr. Lewis had the opportunity this past summer to visit China and has established communication with some schools there, and really we've begun to have dialogue about having our kids going to China and having the students from China come and stay with our kids. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more after we have the presentation. But we've been having some great phone conferences between the folks through ASBA and with Ruth and Donna and myself, as we're beginning to talk about what would that look like with having our kids coming over there, and they would be visiting both Beijing and Nanjing. So again, bringing it to the school board and looking into the board members' desires for the possibility of this exchange, we would be looking at our 7th grade students who would be going this July, and then we would have the Arizona visit for the Chinese students would be in January of next year.
How many students are you looking at?
Our goal at this point is to have at least 1 student from every school. And if we can get more, that will be fabulous. So another interesting part of what developed through Dr. Lewis's trip this summer is really beginning a partnership and dialogue with the Salt River Pima Maricopa County Indian community. And sometimes we think we have to go far away for our kids to experience that cultural opportunities, and as Ruth said earlier, we have it right here in our community. And so one of the things is we're beginning to have dialogue about developing a reciprocal partnership between the Salt River, Pima Maricopa Indian County, and Creighton, and how much we can learn from each other right here. But then also the hope is that they will have students who will join the Creighton students, and together we'll all go to China together. So here's, in our conversations that we've had with our contact folks, they have provided us with some pictures. Here's one of the opening ceremony for the China Summer Camp.
And this summer camp is, the summer camp is what they're looking at for our kids to do too. And the summer camp, these are pictures of a summer camp that was done with Fairfax County schools. So the pictures you'll see aren't our students, but there was a group that did this last summer, and so this would be similar to what our students might do.
And if the students went, they would be involved with homestays as well as reciprocated here when they would come to Arizona. So here's just a couple of pictures of the activities that they have with the students participating in. Great opportunity for kids. Amazing, actually. So as that's our piece that we'll talk a little bit more about in just a minute. But what we want to just do is review where we're looking at hopefully going with our Junior Ambassador program. We want to be able to have some feedback from the board members. And so as we look at 2018 and beyond, again, we want to go back to taking our Junior Ambassador program and bringing it down into our grades. Really focusing with beginning with the 5th through 8th grade, and again, building each year on things. Not just thinking about having the kids travel, but what does it mean to be an ambassador? How can I be an ambassador on an everyday basis? Not just when I go somewhere. and it doesn't mean that I just get to travel. And so what would our classes look like? How do we build leadership? What kind of local field trips do we have? How can we bring our community members to help educate our students so that they can be more globally and culturally aware? And then we'll continue to provide our travels with our DC trip, hopefully with including China, and then really looking at how can we think about having our kids be ambassadors internationally and participate in service leadership programs. And I will let Ruth talk about the places that she's doing some research with.
I've been looking at different places that students could travel with programs that already exist, that they would get the cultural experience, they could get language experience if that's what we choose, and they would also have the opportunity to do service learning. There are several organizations that have that available, and we would have to decide on that at a later date. But some of the places that many of them have are in Central America. One of the first places we thought about was Central America because it's a little closer, it's a little less expensive. And there are programs in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Guatemala. Also Peru, for if we wanted to go just a little step further. And then there are these service learning programs with the cultural, little sightseeing, but also with the service learning part that are available as far away as Tanzania, Morocco, Greece, Thailand, and India. Several places in India, several places in Thailand. The Greek one especially interests me because foundation of Western civilization, but they're working with Syrian refugees. And the kids would have the opportunity to work with kids in their schools, in their camps, and help out and learn about that from a different perspective. So as we go forward, we just hope that we can continue, we can expand the program, more kids can get involved, and the students can become the ambassadors that they're meant to be. Thank you.
Feedback or questions?
I think this is timely. Tomorrow is Japanese holiday, celebration of the autumn moon. Everyone's eating moon cakes. But I think I'm the only board member who went on one of these trips when years ago when we went to Japan. And I say to people, I really think our students, meaning those of another culture, it matures them, it gives them a global sense of self. It does a whole bunch. My only criticism of the past was the amount of students that couldn't go, and the cost that was prohibited to a lot of our students. I thought more students should be involved. I'm glad it's expanding. I'm glad, you're getting a kind-hearted leader who community service also. I'm glad you're networking with those that are closer for younger kids. I think it's great.
Questions. So it says that the China program would be sponsored by AASA. What does that mean exactly, sponsored?
There would be the organization that we would work through to secure all of the arrangements. So they had the connections with the schools. They would work to make sure that all of the necessary steps are in place to provide just a quality program. So we've already had some dialogue with them in regards to just some of the simple components. And then, if the governing boards should approve that process, then we'll move forward and have more detailed conversations with them.
And do we know what the cost would be, or how would we change fundraising the way we currently do it? Would it be tax credits? still?
It could be, it could be. I think that's also one of the great things about bringing Cole and his team in is, I wish you could have been with me the night that we went to, and Ruth and I went to ASU, and we had this whole room filled with all of these ASU students who were so excited about being at the table for different types of things. So they're also working with Dr. Lugo with retention pieces. They're working with us with junior ambassadors. There are different other opportunities, and it's just the energy and the exchange of ideas. And so our hope is by reaching out to this team and reaching out to different other venues is that we can then do some different brainstorming for fundraising.
And then will there be an after-school component, like Chinese language classes?
Yeah.
So just for me, if you could clarify the donation, the tax credit donation to Creighton Community Foundation. I heard it from a parent, so the way I understand it, because it's such a complicated thing, the way I understand it is you donate your $400 typical tax credit that we've collected in the past, but in addition, if they donate the $800 for a married couple to the Creighton Community Foundation, then the Creighton Community Foundation puts that in its special fund, and then they put 10% for an admin stuff. Is that how I?
That is a brief overview, but I would rather come back with specifics because it's just in a dialogue conversation at this point.
Okay.
So I don't want to misspeak.
Okay. I do think that's a great.
Yeah,
It's a great
absolutely.
idea. Yeah.
And again, it goes
Yeah.
back to how can we think out of the box
Yeah.
so we can get more kids to go.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
So
good.
that's
a
the
lot
bottom.
for
That's
me.
the bottom line. Is we
Yeah.
want to be able to open the doors for more kids.
And then, we're already in October.
We know.
So, how will you communicate this to everybody?
Well, so should the board decide to approve it. We have action starting tomorrow.
Okay.
So.
And so just comments, feedback. And one other thing too. So just something to be thinking about, the Hermosillo exchange that happens at Biltmore. The idea was that would live in junior ambassadors because, so think about that. I mean, I'm not even sure who's kind of running it right now, but Margaret came and, was a little bit involved and, kind of gave us her approval. But it does have a great exchange program with a school in Hermosillo, and they go through high school. So I think there is potential to grow that to other grades and to other schools. But I would like to see it live under junior ambassadors in some aspects, just so that we can take credit for it as part of the program, and so that it follows some of the same standards of being an ambassador and whatever, those goals are that you have. I think, and there's a service learning portion to that one as well. So I just think there's a lot of potential to bring those all under. But I think this is great, so thank you.
I'm excited about the expansion. I love all the different places that you're thinking about taking this. I love the fact that it was serendipitous. The Salt River Pima Indian superintendent was in China with you.
One of 8 people in the nation.
Crazy. I think that's awesome, and I think that right there opens up opportunities. I when I was a kid, I loved having
30 miles down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, just that opportunity alone is fantastic. And I had a pen pals when I was in junior high school. It was like one of my favorite parts of junior high school. So I love everything. So thank you guys so much for all of your hard work and your dedication to this program. Really,
It's been so much fun to watch the energy and just the passion that is there for what can we do more for our kids, and with the understanding of we want to have them to truly understand what being an ambassador is, because you don't have to go somewhere to be an ambassador, and you need to figure out how to be an ambassador at home first before you can go out and be an ambassador. So.
I'm already thinking of using like ambassador as a vocabulary word and lesson plans. So thanks.
Weeks. Awesome.
Just a couple other thoughts I had. I love the idea of it going K-8 or first grade through 8, just so they start learning about that idea. And again, we talked about I don't think it's happened yet, but Skyping in addition to being pen pals, I mean, there's so much potential. And I think this is something that is unique to Creighton. And if we get it first grade through 8th grade, I mean, that is something that makes Creighton really special. If every kid can somehow have a hand on this, even if they don't travel all the way to China. But I think it's potentially a huge value for the district, so.
And I think what's going to be really important for us to do now too is instead, okay, let's look at a timeline. Let's build a multiple year plan, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we roll it out successfully, and so you can't do it all at once.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll go back, work together with the committee and really kind of flush things out a little bit more, but we wanted to share what our thought processes have been at this point, and then we can then lay out a plan that says, okay, so for this year, that's why we're bringing China before, because we think that's a great place for us to first start, and then what will come in future years, so.
Not bad for 90 days.
Not bad for 90 days.
Everybody else too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great liaisons, great. Thanks, guys. Good job.
All right, let's just slide right into that next agenda item. Approval of District Junior Ambassador Program in China.
I move.
Where is it? There it is.
I move when we approve the District Junior Ambassador Program in accordance with, I can see it right there, whatever it is.
Move the governing board approve the Creighton School District Junior Ambassador Student Program with China.
Dates are different on this than what you had in your PowerPoint. You say 2019.
So we would be looking at our students going in July of 2018, so this next summer. And then January 2019 is the approximate date. We've had conversations about the students from China coming to us.
Oh.
So it's that exchange.
A second?
It is, she's on our agenda items.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back and fix that. I appreciate that.
Well, let's make it actual now. Read it appropriately now, so it should be amended to read 18.
Right.
The Creighton students and staff will visit China in July of 2018. Thank you. And the Chinese students and staff will visit Arizona in January, February of 2019. Thank you for that correction.
So we need a new motion. So I move the governing board approve the Creighton School District Junior Ambassador Student Program with China as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes. Congratulations.
We greatly thank you for that support, and we look forward to coming back with more details, and tomorrow the work will begin. Thank you so much.
Thanks for all your work on that. All right. And now we get to hear from the other side of the boardroom, Mr. Mann.
Well, I think you better hold on to your hats, because it's going to blow the doors off of all that excitement now. And speaking of excitement, we were having a very new set of experiences this year with all of our budgetary processes. So we know that the AFR, Annual Financial Report, is very exciting. A future meeting, we have the budget coming back to you, and then reports on all of our different election funding sources. And the part that's made it exciting this year is that when they originally set these up, the deadlines for these items were typically in November and December, because they know that it's not until October that you really start to have the data sets you need in order to pull these reports together, and it takes several weeks to gather, the laborious, as you've looked at these documents, there's a lot of numbers you're checking, double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking. The complication that occurred for this year was with the 1.06% teacher raise, they tied it to the annual financial report. And so in order to do all of the paperwork in a timely fashion, they pushed all of our deadlines up 6 weeks. So that's why you saw the first draft of the annual financial report coming out so late on Friday. That's why we needed to do proofing over the weekend in order to make sure everything was correct and you got a revision on Monday. But I just wanted to make you aware of that because it is very different. You're used to having this long build-up period until November to get all excited about it, and now we're just going to have to jump right into it in October without that build-up period.
And compliments to the staff for the hurried work, understaffed, and some of the new things that hit along the way that you guys really pulled it off, so just kudos.
So I'm very pleased to introduce Dina Dumoulin, who's our Director of Finance, and she's going to talk to you about a lot of different buckets of money. So we're going to look at M&O in a bunch of different ways, the Proposition 301 funding that is where our pay for performance for our teachers comes from, and a lot of our teachers' salaries, various capital funds, federal and state aid, and then some other funding sources that we have. So hang on a little bit, because what you'll see is as we go through, you may think, but where's food service? Where's this one? They're all kind of buried in there, and we're going to work through them kind of sequentially. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our expert, Dean.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Lewis, and executive team, welcome. Jay gave a great introduction, so I better jazz this thing up a little bit. This is our annual financial report. Being presented tonight in accordance with ARS 15-904. So we're going to cover the major, this is by function. This list should look pretty familiar to you. The dollars in the classroom report that often comes up is driven directly from this AFR. So again, this is for fiscal year 17, ending June 30th, 2017. So you can see our classroom support is the largest portion, followed by student support and instructional support. Now there is some talk when we talk about the dollars in the classroom report of changing that to include those last two sections of student and instructional support to also be included in the total instructional dollars. Because we recognize that for student support, those are things like your nurses, those are speech therapists, those are occupational therapists, those are translation services for meetings with parents. So those are important to the student's success in the classroom just as much as some of the support that we provide to teachers. We have some of our technology staff that come in and provide professional services to teachers so that they can integrate technology into the classroom. So as we recognize it in the education field, that being very important to student success, it doesn't always come out in the reports from ADE as being included, so I wanted to include that. You can see the other major categories there, and then just a nice visual, because I'm a very visual person. But you can see the largest part of that pie, if we could include those three, would be directly impacting the students in the classroom. The next division is between regular education, special education, and transportation. Those are our three major programs within our school district. You can see the breakdown there. If you're wondering what our breakdown student-wise, student count was for the fiscal year 17, we have about 9% in special education, the rest are regular education. For transportation, I'm going to throw out a fun fact, because I know these presentations are a little boring and they get monotonous, so I got a fun fact for you. Transportation, 5.3% of our budget. Our transportation department traveled with students 262,475 miles last year. Now the distance from the Earth to the Moon is 238,900. So if they got into a magical bus, they could go all the way to the Moon and start their trip back, but not quite. That's our little entertainment to kind of liven up a budget presentation, but otherwise it's just a lot of numbers and pictures. So there's some pictures for you.
Excuse me. You made a comment about special ed being 9% of our student population.
Yes.
That's approximately average for the country. How many? I was just wondering, has this gone up from past years or gone down, or remained stable?
And we're getting signals from Chris Hartsoff, so you want to yell out the national average?
The norm is anywhere from 10 to 12%
Right.
identified as special ed.
Right.
And higher in urban settings.
So actually 9% for us is,
1% lower.
yeah.
Yeah, or more.
And we have, to meet compliance, you can't go above 12%.
Okay.
So,
Is this average percentage for our school district? Has it remained stable? Have we gone up? Have we gone down for the school district?
our student population has gone up, like from 15-16 to 16-17. It went up about 20 students, and we'll see what the census brings this year. So not a lot, and we actually have some schools that are under-identified, as opposed to like speech is over-identified. So we're monitoring that, and that's an area of work.
Thank you.
This is by object code, so we went with function. This definitely tells you we're in the people business. 85%, close to 85% of our M&O budget is for salaries and benefits, so that's actual teachers, staff members across the district. Purchase service there might look a little high. Keep in mind that that's not just contracted employees, that's also tuition out, that's also contracted speech therapists, that's if we have to contract transportation. So all of that is included in that category. Supplies is listed there. Again, keep in mind that supplies is not just paper and pencil. We have utilities in there, so about 1.4 million of that is just utilities, water, electricity. We have fuel, parts for repairs on buses, parts that our facilities department maintains things throughout the district. All of that is included. The other category there is primarily community education. There's your nice graph. Prop 301, this is our classroom site fund. All of that is used for teacher salaries. It's broken down there, and that represents about 9.1% of every certified teacher's salary. So when you look at that total of 2.5 million, that's why the exec team gets a little heartburn as we talk about this sunsetting in a couple years, because this would be an increase to the M&O budget of $2.5 million. So this is extremely important to our budget, that somehow we get this to continue. Capital funds, that's an outline for what we spent in capital. We have not spent adjacent ways yet. The bond proceeds there probably look a little low to you, considering that we just sold our first series of bonds. But keep in mind that these are for projects and services that were completed by June 30th. So we had a number of things that we got into place and moving before June 30th. It just wasn't completed and therefore not paid in this fiscal year. You'll see those expenditures on next year's AFR. I did want to mention that we are on the agenda, I believe, for the next board meeting to cover capital and bond in greater detail, also a requirement by law. So we'll be going district-wide, what we spend it on, how we spend our funds in each of those, and also school by school. So you get to see kind of what we did at each campus with those funds. Federal state grants, there's our total, almost $9 million in federal and state grants. Federal grants are the ones you're most commonly familiar with, Title I, Title II, IDEA. The state grant is primarily our SROs at the campuses. We also have a couple character education grants that are in that total as well. So here's our other funds, the big ones here that are listed. The first one there, Child Nutrition and Wellness, get ready because it's fun fact number 2. 6.1 million in budget, but here we go. Nutrition and Wellness served 2,044,379 meals last year, while the average In-N-Out burger serves approximately 383,435 meals per year, which means our nutrition department is the equivalent of 5.3 In-N-Out burgers, but they serve much healthier and nutritional food. That's probably why I have a gallbladder, because I like those burgers. We also have indirect on there. Indirect, again, is really a portion of everybody's salary that works with grants. So it's our grants department, it's our business office, it's HR, it's even curriculum, because all those people have their hands in federal funds as well. So that, again, is salary. So that's another $1 million worth of somebody's salary because of indirect from grants. That instructional improvement fund, that's Fund 20 that we talked about. There's a very small, I think 0.09% in every teacher's salary that's included there. And then you see tax credits, gifts and donations, student activity, and our civic center. So we looked at this as a per student breakdown. So what do we spend per student out of maintenance and operations, out of capital? And you can just kind of go down the list. The more interesting slide is probably the second one here. And this is a 3-year span. So we've calculated the difference there for you. So as you see in maintenance of operation, for example, we've actually been able to spend $88 more per student out of M&O. The biggest reason for that is the influx of the Prop 123 dollars that went. When you look at capital, again, we need to thank our community and our voters because that's a direct result of the capital override that we had. The classroom site funds, that Prop 301 dollars, that's been hanging steady and actually took a little dip up this year, so we've done some there. Where you see the negatives, the instructional improvement and in federal programs, that's important to look at because as those programs go down, we've already talked about indirect, so as federal programs goes down, our indirect goes down, and some of those costs have to go somewhere. So a lot of times it's in another fund until that one goes down, or it's back to M&O. And then our state programs have stayed pretty stable. And that is the end of the excitement, unless you have some more questions.
Anybody have any questions? I think that was one of the most entertaining history reports. I really appreciate that, Dean, I do.
I want you to know that I asked Mr. Mann if we could do a musical presentation of this. I got denied my first year, but maybe the second year.
Yes.
Let's wait for year 2.
You gotta keep them one more.
I think Mrs. McSheffrey would like it if it was to Hamilton.
I do want to say, I was talking to Dr. Lewis today about just kind of the complexity of what you guys have had to go through the last couple of weeks and just want to appreciate everything that you've had thanks to this moving up of the numbers. So appreciate all your hard work.
Yes, thank you. All right, now Ms. Young.
Move the governing board approve the annual financial report for fiscal year 2016-2017.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. All right, future agenda items.
I would like to see the data of the kids who have been with us 3 years or longer, so we can kind of get that breakdown and see how we are doing with those kids. And I'm not sure exactly in what format, but as part of when we go over the labels, when that stuff comes, I'd like to see that part of it.
Dr. Peterson has already scheduled that to be included as part of the presentation, so I'm not sure we need it as a separate
Okay.
agenda item.
Great.
And we hear you loud and clear, it was already prepared,
Right.
it's
Okay.
being prepared.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then the other thing was just the Biltmore FLI program, because we've got our 8th graders moving on to high school next year. I would like to see where they stand compared to other districts and what their Apple scores are and what it is they'll be able to say when they go to high school. Like, this is how I'm proficient. So their proficiency levels and how we're providing that to them.
Perfect, we're scrubbing that and ready for that too. I think that'll be closer to, when would that be, Dr. Peterson? At the end of the year? Okay. Because I have to take end of course year, so anyway, we plan timing, we're gonna have to get some end of course testing. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm wondering where the one that I proposed a couple of weeks ago is gone now completely, so it's not even
About what?
in the future. It's the one where we make kind of a declaration. I actually gave everybody a copy in.
The ASBA's equity challenge?
Nope. It was a declaration, I think, No, it was on the, not the sanctuary, not that word, but it was on, and it's not the Safe Schools resolution either. I'll have to go back in my notes because it
I can
has.
look it up, because I might have accidentally,
I'm looking in the last couple of board meetings and I'm not seeing anything.
you're not seeing it?
Yeah, it was quite a while ago.
I'll look for it, because I should still have the form you filled out.
Yeah, I have to start making copies of it.
Move to adjourn.
There's a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.